Hello and welcome. My name is Joe Johnson. I serve as the Executive Director of the National Center for Urban School Transformation, INCUST. Since 2005, INCUST has been identifying amazing elementary, middle, and high schools that generate great learning results for all demographic groups of students. Not surprisingly, we have found the same impressive teaching practices throughout these schools. In our current situation, we need to find ways to apply those essential teaching practices in remote learning environments to ensure equity and excellence for all students we have the privilege to serve. We believe the teaching practices we've witnessed in INCUST award-winning schools can be applied in ways that make online learning more powerful and more effective for diverse populations of students. While our nation should certainly applaud educators for their amazing efforts to adapt quickly to the realities of the pandemic, we know students have not benefited equitably. Emergency remote teaching is not the same as well-planned distance learning. To that end, we're pleased to introduce you to our Equity, Excellence, and e-learning webinar series, which will highlight each practice in the book, Teaching Practices from America's Best Urban Schools, second edition. And we'll discuss practical ways educators can apply those practices in online instructional delivery. The acclaimed teacher and professional organization leader, Adam Urbanski, was known to have said, well, for a teacher to say, I taught it, but my students didn't learn it, it's kind of like a physician saying, I cured him, but he died. Many of us have been trained to believe that if we presented it, some concept, some information, some skill, if we presented it, well, students learned it. The truth is that when I present something to my students, I can only be certain that one person knows it. That's me. Unless my students show me that they understand, that they have made sense of the information in their minds, that they're able to articulate what they understand. They're able to demonstrate what they understand. They're able to model what they understand. When that happens, then and only then do I really know that they know it. So when we visit schools that are getting excellent results for every demographic group of students, we see teachers who are so persistent in making sure that they're getting input from every student. They're constantly checking because they want to know, does she understand? What does he understand? Is that understanding complete? And then they're constantly providing feedback to those students to help them fine-tune their understandings. And they're adapting instruction accordingly. And so in today's session, we're focusing on the practice of checking understanding, providing feedback, and adapting instruction accordingly, even when we are engaged in distance learning. And actually, especially when we are engaged in distance learning. because it's even more important in these difficult times and circumstances that we are reaching out to our students to check to see what do they understand, how do they understand it. It's even more important that we are constantly providing feedback to help our students fine-tune their understandings. And it's even more important that teachers are adapting their lessons so that their students are more likely to develop rich, powerful understandings. We are so fortunate today to have teachers and leaders from one of our amazing award-winning schools, Rolando Park Elementary, and they will be introduced in just a moment. But first, it's my pleasure to introduce to you one of our InCust executive coaches, Kara Riggs. Kara will be serving as the moderator for today's event, and Kara will introduce our panelists. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope that you benefit from this great opportunity to learn from the leaders and educators at Rolando Park Elementary.
Thank you, Joe. And thank you to our panelists who are joining us. As Joe mentioned, my name's Kara Riggs, and I'll be your moderator for today. After a 30-year career in the Omaha Public Schools, I was blessed to land in the lap of InCust, and so I've been here for 6 years and feel so privileged to be a part of it. But let me introduce our panelists today. As Joe mentioned, from Rolando Park Elementary School in San Diego Unified District. First, Principal Anthony DeLuca, and third grade teacher, Margie Newt, and our kinder representative, Alex Persha. So I want to start with just sharing with our audience the process of identifying our InCust America's Best Urban School Award winners. I want to share the process that we actually go through. So after a school qualifies for one of our awards, and they're pretty tough to qualify for, we must say, we take a team to the school and we spend a couple of days with them in and out of classrooms, our team members observing, teaching and learning, and doing focus groups with all of the stakeholders from that school community. So we meet with students, we meet with parents, we meet with teachers, administrators, and we gather all of the data and make sure that what's on that application is truly happening across those classrooms and across the campus of that potentially high-performing school, award-winning school. So what about Rolando Park? Well, as Joe mentioned, they are one of our 2020 Gold Award winners. Let's all give them a round of applause. Very good. So exciting. And since I knew that you were going to be our featured panelist for this particular webinar, and I happened to have been the lead on your school visit, I took the opportunity to pull out the notes that our team took during your visits, because I wanted you to see the alignment of what you're talking about today, and also what happened on your campus that led to a gold award. So I thought that would be fun for you to hear and for us to share with our audience today. So these are a few of the things that were noted. As I read them, think about how many of the things I read validate not just your gold level award, but also how evident the practices of checking for understanding, providing feedback, and adapting are coherent across the Rolando Park campus. First thing I noted was teachers emphasize differentiation for those who master early and extra support for those who do not. Secondly, teachers speak of designing lessons focused on the standard for all to be successful, and then using their formative data to what you guys called support up. Remember that? Mr. DeLuca's mantra around the campus, mentioned many times by teachers and by himself, was an acronym. It's KTAR. Anthony, I'm going to try to get this right. So here's a quiz for me. It is know the standard, teach the standard, assess the standard, and reteach the standard.
You got it, Kara.
Did I get it right?
Got it right. And KTAR doesn't have a really catchy ring to it, but it's simple and it's short and it's what we need to do.
And it's absolutely a wonderful focus for planning. So I love that. And that was in our notes. Teachers also receive, and noted that teachers receive a great deal of support and feedback and believe they grow greatly because of it. Those were the notes from our team. Teachers receive a great deal of support and feedback, and they believe they grow greatly because of it. And then lastly, I pulled out that teachers learn and try new things in a culture where risk is encouraged. So again, all of these observations by our team validate that these particular practices are part of what contributed to Rolando Park getting a gold award and your students having such amazing outcomes. So on your campus, Margie and Alex, you as adults learn new strategies, don't you? That was mentioned many times. You practice those strategies, you receive coaching around those strategies, and you get feedback. If you need more support, you receive that as well. And that goes for all of the teachers on your campus. So isn't it very interesting that the same practices that you receive as a professional teacher, learning, receiving feedback, and adapting as needed, are the same effective strategies that you've so successfully done with students? So it's the same things that we need as adult learners that our kids definitely need to master the new skills that you're teaching them. And that's the content of our webinar today. I also want to reference our companion blog that you can find on the website for the audience to read. It's called The Cure for I Taught It, but My Students Didn't Learn It. So be sure to check that out, as well as an extra support around that topic. So let's move on at this time to some questions for our panelists. First, Anthony, let me just take just a minute to congratulate you for your leadership in the true transformation of Rolando Park and your school's gold level NCUST Best Urban School Award. So congratulations, Anthony.
Thanks, Ben.
And I have to ask you, what was the reaction to your school community, your staff, your students, your families, your district colleagues in San Diego on the announcement that it was not just an award, but a gold level award?
Well, the reaction was huge. It was amazing. The text started flying. My boss would put me on a chain with all other principals. Congratulate Anthony and Rolando Park Elementary. It was really, it was momentous. And because we were kind of, Dr. Johnson, we were kind of way down in the 58-minute range of the presentation. We were all crossing our fingers and wondering, what is it going to be? So, but first, you guys, I wanted to thank everyone at National Center for Urban School Transformation for considering us for this honor. And Kara, you were wonderful. And Dr. Johnson, you and I go back a couple of years. I had the benefit of being with you in Tennessee, and you were fantastic. So everyone was just the height of professionalism, and we were happy to host you guys. The reception from our community and from our teachers, it was texts, and it was dojo messages, and it was Facebook messages, and it was phone calls of congratulation. And all of that I funneled back to our teachers. And I feel like I've been really lucky to be part of a school where I have strong teachers, I have professional teachers, and they really, really care about the kids. And it's something that we talk about a lot. So it was an awesome reaction from everyone.
Well, it was clear in our interviews with your teachers that your energy was contagious. And so I'm not surprised the transformation happened. However, I would say to you that it's not easy work, and we know that. So tell us, what's it like to go from being a low performing school to doing the work with your staff to get to being a high performing school?
Well, when I think about that transformation, that has been one of the most rewarding things for me and for it, not just talking about for me or for our teachers, but I think Margie and Alex can both speak to this. We have parents that now believe in our school. They believe in our community. When I was talking to a mother this morning who said, "Oh my God, I know my daughter's going to be fine." And this happened this morning, Margie, because she's in Mrs. Newt's class. I get those things because our parents trust us. So they've seen the transformation. They've looked, they check websites, external websites, and they contact us, and our enrollment has increased over the past 5 years about almost 100 students.
Mm.
And so it's been amazing to be part of that transformation.
So your neighborhood began to trust you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We just can't get past this question that everybody is wanting to know. Talk first a little bit, just briefly, about the reality of being an instructional leader of a high performing school in the middle of a pandemic where all leaders, all teachers, everybody is a first year, whatever the role is, right? Can you talk to us about that? Because I'd really like to know how you balance the leadership need to be patient and to be offering grace and making mistakes with still the need to have high expectations and make sure that the bottom line is still mastery for your kids. How do you balance that?
I'll do my best. And as Margie, as Mrs. Newt and Ms. Persia know, that patience is not my strong point, but I've needed to have patience. And, let me just start by saying that this job has taught me that leadership does matter. And if there's anything that I've learned over the past 5 years of being principal here at Rolando Park, it's that leading by example with the underlying motivation always being what is best for our students is simply paramount with respect to what I do on a daily basis. Every action that I take, it has to be framed in this simple idea: is what we are doing or what we are proposing, is that good for our students? And then that simple question hasn't changed because of the pandemic. It has actually helped me to focus even more on the importance of our core mission. And that really boils down to, Kara, what you mentioned earlier with the not so great sounding acronym KTAR, but knowing the standards, teaching the standards, assessing the standards, and then reteaching. I'm sure there are, who are going to listen to this, there are many type A personality principals and teachers out there that want to work quickly, want to get the job done. And to answer your question about balancing the need to be extra patient while also maintaining high expectations, I would venture for a principal and for staff members, it all comes down to building the relationships with your staff members as well as trusting them as professional teachers. And I could say this, just straight from the heart. One cool thing about my job is I learn from my teachers all the time. I have smart teachers. I never take them or their teaching for granted. I literally view my job as one that my job is to support them to the best of my ability in all curricular areas and in all circumstances, any parent issues, student issues. So my leadership style hasn't changed in that I am still here for my teachers, my students, my parents when they need me. I've just had to understand that during these times, I need to be more cognizant of some of the challenges that many of our families are facing. And that additional cognizance leads me to have to have more patience in letting that learning process unfold. Does that make sense?
Very much. Thank you. Can you speak to us about these particular practices? Because they were evident in our observations, that it was a cohesive observation. It didn't matter which classroom you were in, you saw these practices in every one of them. Can you tell us, what are your walkthroughs now, your virtual walkthroughs, looking like now in regards to those practices? Are you seeing that? Those practices?
Absolutely. So, if I'll kind of go back to where we're talking about checking for understanding and how things you mentioned when you're in different classrooms at Rolanda Park, you're seeing a lot of the same things. And how that happened was when I got here, I recognized right away we had excellent teachers. And together, everyone here at the school recognizes the importance of preparing our kids for future success in middle school and high school, college, and beyond. One of the initial items that RPE embarked upon 5 years ago was to begin to build a dialogue around what success in ELA and mathematics, what that would look like. So with respect to our academic regimen and why you've seen that consistency across classrooms, is we rely, really, there's no mystery to it other than putting it all together. We rely heavily on the California Common Core standards and our critical concepts. Mm-hmm. As a school team during PLCs, and we took some time, right, Margie and Alex, we took time to do this. We mapped out what we would be teaching students according to our critical concepts, which are tied to the California Common Core standards. We cross-referenced all student learning goals with our district-provided year-at-a-glance documents for ELA and math, and we decided exactly what critical concepts we would be teaching each trimester for our students and what they would be expected to know as a result. So one of the goals for us was to remove the ambiguity and just get down to brass tacks of what we really needed to do. So also, we decided as a school that just talking about what we were going to do wasn't going to be enough. And so together we developed, I think this was our first year, we developed a school-wide assessment plan. We also needed to always have our student data highlighted with respect to making sure our students were meeting or exceeding standards at each grade level. So in order to do that, we implemented the following. We committed to a very strong focus on literacy in our primary grades. And I think, Alex and our kinder teachers, our first grade teachers, our second grade teachers, and all of our meetings are probably sick of me hearing me say, you guys need to get them ready for Margie in third grade. But I'm like a broken record when I say that, because I know when they hit third grade, Mrs. Newt's going to be really tough, and she's going to find out, and she's going to know who's not reading at grade level. And if they're not reading at grade level, we've got a lot of work to do to get them back up to where they need to be. So we had a strong focus on literacy in our primary grades. We committed to a school-wide assessments, and we developed those to match our California Common Core standards. We committed to collecting data, and I think this is a big one. We stored all our data centrally on a master PLC document, so that we could really look at our student levels year over year and teacher to teacher and see how we're doing. And then we looked at Richard Dufour's 4 key questions about what concepts we expect our students to learn, how will we know when they've learned it, how will we respond when they don't, and what about the students who already know that, how will we push them further. So all of the Dufour's 4 questions fit nicely into KTAR: know, teach, assess, and reteach.
Yeah.
So part of your question then was, how am I seeing those things in virtual learning, correct? Mm-hmm. So what I see when I go into classrooms, is that teachers are still doing all of these things. They're continuing to collect data, provide feedback. I've seen evidence in Class Dojo, in Seesaw, in Google Classroom, in chat conversations, student polling data on questions, and reteaching in small groups. Our teachers are doing all of these things. And, you know, while it's not ideal not having students with us, in some aspects, we've become better. We've had to force ourselves to become better with technology, to become a different kind of teacher in the environment that we're in. One of the first things that I did when I became a principal was to search for what teachers say the traits are that they like or that they desire in a principal. And what I found was the vast majority of teachers want a principal who trusts in their professionalism and gives them autonomy within the scope of what needs to be taught. And I've always done my best to adhere to what I learned via this research. And an offshoot of this is when I visit a classroom, now when I'm visiting virtually, my teachers don't view my dropping in on lessons as anything other than me being there to see them, to see our students, and to be able to assist them in any way possible. All of that espouses the benefits of having a strong professional teaching staff, in that they understand the need for vertical integration with our students. They understand how important it is for each grade level to do the heavy lifting required to help our students to advance to the next level. Even with the struggle of not having our students in the physical classrooms, our teachers are still taking the necessary and important steps for our students, and I remain grateful for our teachers every single day. I'm very open to helping out any other principals who may be interested in putting together some of the data systems that we've put together here at Rolando Park, some of the assessment systems, and I believe that Mark and Kara over at NCUS can provide you guys with my email, and feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much for your reflection on those questions. So what did my notes show me when I pulled them out about the teachers? What did our team say about the teachers on your campus? Let me share a couple of those comments. Teachers value planning together and collaborating rather than working in isolation. Teachers are dedicated to creating engaging lessons. Staff all express a continued sense of urgency for improvement. And staff are dedicated to using data as evidence that drives their next moves with each child. And again, I think that all of those align so well with the practices we're talking about today. Margie, are you ready? We're going to have Margie answer a couple questions.
Yes.
In regards to the focus on checking for understanding. So first, I got to have you answer this though. Let's address the issue of the Zoom screen and our kids, the camera, the dreaded camera. One of the biggest challenges that many teachers across the country right now are facing is the huge struggle in getting students to show their faces on the Zoom screen. And it's unimaginable to me to even think about trying to make connections with students. And we know that building that community culture in each classroom is so important, but to not be able to see their faces and feel their energy and excitement and see the struggle, I just can't imagine. So how has that been, Margie, for you? And how have you tackled the challenge?
So I have to say the best part of my day is seeing those faces. And it was a challenge initially, trying to balance the screens and being able to see them and be able to ascertain, are they with me? Are they following along? Are they struggling? So the biggest thing that helped me out was to get 2 monitors. So I can actually see them, and they're not a tiny little thumbnail. They're actually, I can see what they're doing. So that's been very, very helpful. Additionally, we start our day when I take attendance, all cameras on. That's the expectation. I know we can't necessarily require that, but again, for me to be able to read them and know, are they getting it if they're not verbalizing it? I need to be able to see them. And so the expectation is they will have their cameras on, and we do a mic check to make sure that I can hear them. For me, I really work to encourage them, tell them how I can love seeing them work. I love to see them persevering in the work, and then they'll actually put their camera down so I can see what they're doing. You know, they'll kind of show me their journals or whatever it is they're doing. So they want to be successful. And I think just the expectation, they have them on. They get to turn them off when we take a break. And if they need to chat, that they need to go do something, they turn them off. But I do ask that they turn them back on so that I know they are present for instruction.
Great. So what are some of your most successful tools during distance learning that you've used to check for understanding when your students are on the virtual screen? I mean, faces in the little box, not right next to you, sometimes perhaps not wanting to engage. Are there Zoom or other platform tools that you use that assist you with this formative data gathering, really?
Yeah, so as classroom teachers, when you're in the classroom, it is much easier to do, and it's something that we do throughout every lesson all day long. So I think for me, what I had to do was stop for a minute, take a deep breath, and figure out, okay, all those ways that I check for understanding throughout my regular school day, how can I figure out how to do those same checks online? So for instance, in Zoom, where students would be working in the journals in the classroom, I could walk around with my big smelly marker and star their work and see who's getting it, who's not, and then go back and kind of work with them, talk through their thinking. What I've been able to do is use the chat on Zoom has been invaluable to me. And I make sure they're chatting with the host only. That I learned that quickly. And so what they can do is share the work that they're doing in their journal in the Zoom chat. So if we have a multiplication problem of the day, and then there's a chat that goes with that problem of the day. So I can easily check for the understanding that they're doing the work and that they're clear on what that learning target and learning goal is. And I can see it. It's very evident in the chat. Another way that I can do that is through polls. So I will take a poll of how many of the learning targets did you meet? And that's a real quick way for me to see where are we as a class. So I can find the information, check for understanding that way. Additionally, I use Google Classroom. So again, we can do a quick write in Google Classroom. I can see right away who has it and who doesn't. And then I can take that information and then I can adapt the instruction accordingly. So I think just the tools in terms of gathering would be on Zoom, using the chat, using the polls, and then in breakout rooms, additionally, because we do a lot of work when we're in class with collaborative conversations and partner talk. We've spent a lot of time working on that and developing those skills. So in order to do that, I can't have everyone talking at once. And so we go into breakout rooms, and I'm able to join breakout rooms that have a very specific purpose. What is the learning target that you're trying to reach when you're doing that work in the breakout room? And I don't have them in breakout rooms for very long. So it needs to be quick, it needs to move, and then they come back and then we share out. So that's another tool that I'm able to use through Zoom is the breakout rooms. And that gives them some time to talk with their classmates, which I think is important, especially during this distance learning time. And then in Google Classroom, There are several different things you can do. You can create quizzes, you can create quick writes, and I can see right away again where students are in their progress toward meeting learning targets and learning goals that will ultimately lead them to meeting the standards.
That's terrific. I'd love to hear too that you've put some norms in place for what they do in that breakout room.
It's really important to keep it short.
Yep, and then
I can't leave them in there very long. So
to have a clear task and to come
Yeah.
back and report out. That's a great strategy. Well, thank you, Margie. I'm going to move over to Alex now. And Alex, I'd like to focus with you on the ways in which you provide feedback to students, to your little kinders in your virtual classroom. What does that look like and how is it working?
It looks a lot different than it did in the classroom, where I could walk around, kind of kneel down and confer with them one-on-one, or pull them over to my teacher table. Obviously, I can't do that. There's a huge barrier, right? The distance that's between us. So I kind of had to rethink how to do this in a way that was sensitive to the kids, not, thoughtful about the words that I say, and making sure that everything is clear, because I can't write on their paper and show them, this is where I wanted you to put a space between your words, or, this is how, to work on this type of problem. So we're very fortunate at our school that we all use Class Dojo. So that's one of the tools that I've kind of started to use as not only a way to participate and talk to my parents and families, but also to give the kids feedback, because they can upload pictures of their work to the student portfolio. And then I have the ability to comment on that. So I can write them a little comment, telling them, great work. I love the way you did this. I like your illustration. And I can also give corrective feedback too, and say, for example, this week we're working on spaces in between our words. So don't forget to use your spacer stick or use your 2 fingers to put a space between all your words when you're writing. I want to see you do that. Try to do that tomorrow when you upload your work or whatever. On Seesaw, which is another tool that we use to send out asynchronous work to our students, I'm able to leave feedback in a variety of ways. I can type a comment to them. I can record myself giving them feedback for those kiddos who don't have a parent there supporting them during the day because they have to work or they have another child that they're taking care of. The child can just hit the little microphone button and hear my feedback. And I can also actually go in and edit their work, and I can, with a different color pen or maybe with the labeling function, I can write and draw on there. So those tools, they're not the same as being in person with the kids and being able to show them and talk to them one-on-one, but they do help a lot. And the kids then have a clear idea when I give them that feedback. They have a clear idea of what I'm talking about.
So a clear idea of what you're talking about is the likely outcome of you giving good feedback to them. Compare that for me. What happens when you don't give them good feedback?
Well, I think just like adults, like you mentioned earlier, the kids, they seek that feedback. They want to know if they did a good job or if they didn't do a good job. And I think they also know, as young as 5 years old, they know if they understood something, if they did the assignment correctly or if they didn't. And when they don't get that feedback, they feel lost, right? They don't have a connection to the teacher, to the class, because if most of the class is getting it and they're not, they start to feel left behind. They start to feel even more isolated than they already do not being in person with their classmates. So I couldn't imagine not giving my students feedback. It just seems like it's an incomplete assignment if I'm not looking at their work and telling them honestly if they did it successfully or if they didn't do it successfully, how to improve on that. And that gives me a good idea of what they're understanding and what they're not understanding.
And that's a great way to put it. Without the feedback and the checking for understanding, and then we send them off to do independent work when maybe they were doing it wrong in the first place. So that can be really frustrating. It's a boon for you both, the student and the teacher, isn't it? When you give good, strong feedback and check for understanding. And so let's talk to all three of you a little bit. Anybody can tap into this question. What are some of the effective ways in which you adapt your instruction with the data that you collect from checking for understanding and giving feedback in the virtual platform? So what might you do with what you find out?
I think it helps me to plan ahead in my lessons. And I know, do I need to pull a certain student or a certain group of students to reteach an assignment or a lesson? Do I need to reteach the concept to the whole class? Maybe it fell flat. Maybe, I thought the lesson was great and it just didn't carry through. Maybe it was on me, maybe it was on them. So looking at all of their work and being able to talk to them and find out what happened when a lesson didn't work right, it gives me a better idea of how to reteach it and who to reteach it to.
Good.
Yeah, I would say too that because we're not in class, we can still pull small groups. So that would be a way, once you look at the data you've collected, the information, the checking from your formative assessments, and you can determine maybe a group that needs some specific reteaching. It could be that a student, for instance, I have office hours, so I will message a student in the chat, why don't you stay at the end of Zoom once everyone leaves and we can go over the assignment or your work, and providing feedback in Google Classroom. There's an area for comments, and then they'll comment back and forth sometimes. So that might be for those students who are doing really well, how to make it even better, a little bit of a challenge. And so they can take that work and work on that independently. So we do have the option for the one-on-one. And we do have the option for the small groups. So I think that's really important for teachers to know, to take advantage of that, because it doesn't have to be just one whole group all day long, because it's really so important to be able to differentiate that instruction, both for the students who are getting it and for the students who clearly have not.
Yes.
So we have those opportunities available to us. And I think that everyone hopefully is taking advantage of that.
And I'm going to say this with great affection, and I think that Alex and Margie will probably giggle at it, but your principal is a real data geek, isn't he?
Yes.
And he has brought, not just the cliche of we need to do data-driven instruction. It's a real testimony of what happens when we collect data, watch it carefully. Anthony, you want to talk just a little bit about that while we have some time?
Sure. We can only be as good as what we agree to as a staff, and with having the platform where we can look at all of our students and how they are doing, I think, and Margie and Alex would probably agree, that when I first started talking about this, it was, there may have been a little bit of trepidation around, having public viewing of, public meaning our teachers viewing of all of our student results. But over time, it's become something that we can really look at to see how our students are doing. And the reason that we do it is because we don't want to be surprised about what's going to happen. All of the teachers at Rolando Park, and it's been amazing, come to me with concerns, issues, trepidations about kids early. And to me, that's a sign that, okay, we're on the right track. Because if we're not concerned early and we're not catching things early, then it could be that we can't make that up later. So I welcome those, I welcome when teachers come to me and say, like, oh my God, I'm worried about so-and-so, or I'm worried. And I get that a lot. And it's really a good thing. And we wouldn't have that if we didn't all agree to have a platform where we could house our data and we can track our kids. And for no other reason than to say, how are our kids doing? And are there kids that we need to worry about early? And if there are kids we need to worry about early, what are we going to do? What are some things we're going to do? And, we fund some different things like an AmeriCorps mentor, and we try We fund a 0.5 resource teacher. That's all we can afford as a little school. But we try to do as much as we can. We've had parent volunteers from the community come in. They volunteered in Margie's class every year. And so as much help as we can get for those kids that we identify early it's all an outflow of having that data and having that mindset of finding kids early and turning that around.
Somebody described it to me once as like knowing the balance from your debit card, from the ATM machine, or from your laptop. You can pull up at any moment and see what your balance is. Where are you right now with your money situation? And I think that's where high performing classrooms are created, is this, these are my clients in this room. These are my kiddos, and I know where they are every single day because I'm doing some formative assessments that give me the indication of where I need to go next with them.
And then there's, I totally agree. And there's another benefit because, you know, when you have to have a tough conversation with a parent, it's better to have those conversations early and to let them know that this is what we see, this is where the struggle is, this is what we need to fix. And then you have, you know, parents who aren't surprised, they understand, and you can enlist them because they're one of the biggest parts. And if you have parents on board at home, then it makes our job easier at school.
Yeah. Well, I'm reading a book right now by Patrick Lencioni, and I love his quotes. But one of his quotes reminded me of the value of how awesome a team approach to transformation is, and it reminded me of the team at Rolando Park. So that the success of kids happen when everyone's commitment, not just the commitment of a few. Here's what he says. He says, if you can get all the people in an organization rowing in the same direction, you could dominate any industry in any market against any competition at any time. And that quote reminds me of the work that all of you have done together at Rolando Park. And that's definitely why you ended up with a gold award. And so it's certainly proven to be true. Everything we know from our research, you guys validated in what we see in your school. So thank you for what you're doing. I want to wrap up today and let Joe join.
I would like to thank our fabulous presenters from Rolando Park Elementary in the San Diego Unified School District. I believe you saw at least part of the reason why every demographic group at Rolando Park outperforms the state averages for all students in California. I especially want to thank Ms. Persha, Ms. Newt, and Principal DeLuca for taking the time to share with us. As I listened to their practical, innovative, and powerful ideas, it was clear to me that checking for understanding was more than a teaching technique to them. It was a commitment. They genuinely wanted to ensure that each and every one of their students was proceeding toward mastery of the critical concepts they seek to teach. I'm convinced that their students are motivated by their teachers' commitment to their success. Thanks as well to our wonderful executive coach, Kara Riggs. Kara did a marvelous job of helping organize this session and facilitating the discussion. Additionally, I want to thank our other INCA staff members who played important roles in making this session happen, especially Mark Wilson and Victoria Berea. Finally, I want to thank you, our audience, for taking the time to join us. Thanks for your interest in continuously learning and growing. And thanks especially for your commitment to serving your students well. We hope you take the time to watch the other sessions in this series, Equity, Excellence, and E-Learning. Stay tuned to incus.com for more information about upcoming sessions. Thank you so much.